Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our latest cybersecurity webinar, where we're going to discuss AI in a turbocharged era. Joined today by Tony Anscombe and Darren Roberts from ESET, who are going to show us some of the main points of AI and why it's so important to see this as a security risk now at your businesses and how you can control that risk. My name's Scott Harrison. I'm a security solutions specialist at Grey Matter. And if you're completely new to Grey Matter, it's worth telling you a bit about us. We are a software and cloud solution provider with over 40 years of experience supporting technology-led companies like yours. We have specific and specialist teams in-house, like myself, that expertise in cybersecurity, but also Microsoft Dev Tools and mapping solutions. We're a part of Client Global Solutions, including a team of technical architects who can help with a range of consultancy and different cloud services. And we are worldwide. We have offices in the UK, Canada, Ireland, and USA. Little picture and in more detail of what we do among the DevTools tech services: mapping, security, hybrid working, and business solutions. If any of those are currently on your radar, all contact details will be at the final slide. Please get in touch with us. We'd be more than happy to help you figure out what you need. It's worth diving into the current threat landscape, or certainly as it stands with data we have from 2024, because even though we are in March, it still feels very early in 2025. And so far in 2024, the average cost of a data breach has topped $4.88 million, the highest average on record. And a lot of the increase in cybersecurity attacks and the attention that businesses have to pay to defending themselves, it's causing a lot of cyber fatigue or an apathy to proactively defending against cyber attacks. And that's affecting as much up to 42% of companies. And the 6 reasons along the right side are some of the main contributors to this. So a rise in ransomware as a service. This is the commoditization and commercialization of cybercriminal gangs who are almost marketing their solutions like you're buying it from an online software store. So it's quite a scary thing when you're just able to go and buy something off a website that can take a business down and cause unlimited consequences because of that, and of course harm to business reputation. Alongside that, there's an increase in AI-powered attacks, and many of the cybersecurity risks associated with AI, like the dependence on the data and the effectiveness, the security, and how they can use to target and manipulate to attack businesses. It's going to cause an over-reliance. An excessive dependence on AI may lead to a skills gap in the cybersecurity workforce. Of course, all that data breaches, misuse, and malicious actors using adversarial attacks to exploit these more frequently used platforms. Supply chain attacks will remain persistent over the next year, along with data governance and compliance and the ever-expanding frameworks that are coming into effect in both Europe and around the world. And we've already covered the skill shortage. This is going to increase the need for managed services and a 24/7 protection, let's say adherence or strategy to protect your businesses. And of course, hybrid working. We are 5 years on from the COVID lockdown. Well, hybrid working is still very much in the business space and still needs to be viewed as a risk, and where people are connecting from and also how they're connecting into their business networks as well. And that's why we've brought ESET along today, and we've been partnered with ESET for a number of years. They are very much a valued partner of ours in the endpoint space, along with new areas that they've started expanding out into for the last couple of years, including patch management and obviously previous slide mentioned managed detection services. And this is where I graciously hand over to Darren and Tony from ESET to cover off how their product is able to protect you against the rising risk of AI. Good afternoon, Tony and Darren.
Hey, thank you, Scott. That was a great introduction. And now we're going to talk about AI Armageddon. That's right, isn't it, Darren?
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. It's
Yeah.
all over.
We're not going to talk about AI Armageddon because AI Armageddon is not coming. But let's kick off with a few definitions, because whenever we term AI, I think it's being somewhat an overused term. I mean, I was recently in an electronics store in the UK, and there was a microwave that claimed to cook your food using AI, which I'm sure it doesn't. I'm sure it's just some sort of cooking program. But my point is, I think everything is become AI. So AI is if you look back in the definitions, it's about a machine making decisions on its own without human supervision. So actually today we're not really AI. We're very much in the machine learning element of artificial intelligence. So i.e., machines are being trained on data, and that data is being used to make decisions, and typically with human oversight, because the data that's being used is being fed by human intervention. So it's not fully an automated system. So there you go. There's a different definition, but we will use the term AI because that's what the industry is using. But if we actually look at the strict definitions, it's more ML. And then we get LLMs. And of course, why did we get to this point where everything has suddenly become AI? That's because LLMs, large language models, where suddenly a machine can start talking back to us in natural language, in human style natural language. So it will generate that feedback. ChatGPT, Copilot, there's various different versions of it around, and many of them are pretty useful and pretty cool if you use them. They do make mistakes, so caution on overly using them. But that's how we got here. Sorry, what was that, Darren?
They certainly do.
They certainly do. There was a really interesting one in New York. There was a lawyer who used it for research, and actually the LLM had used fictional cases to give the response, and the lawyer got called out by the judge and the other side for using actually cases that were fictional as examples in court. The lawyer got fined. Yeah, so I'm just saying, be cautious what you use. Don't believe everything that's output from these models. But with that, there's our definitions. So we've been tracking AI and machine learning for quite some time. In fact, Darren's going to go into a timeline a bit later on, but somewhere back in the 90s, we started working with it. But if you look at it back in 2018, our development team took a look at and tried to make some predictions in a white paper they published. And actually, if we look at the predictions, human-like social engineering, that's definitely happening. Targeted spear phishing campaigns are definitely happening. Malware optimization, victim selection, a lot of these things that we actually predicted back in 2018 certainly are actually happening now in the real world. So AI and ML is something we've been monitoring and tracking for some period of time. But with that, let's look at how this changed the threat landscape. And we're gonna split this into kind of nearly two halves. I'm going to talk about the bad stuff, and Darren's going to tell you how more about the technology from a cybersecurity perspective that can actually then fix it. So I'm going to talk bad. He's going to be the good guy in all of this. I might touch on a little bit of it as well, though. So the increase in volume is the first thing. So if you're a cyber criminal, one thing is sending out volume, certainly in the initial phase of a cyber attack. So if you're running a campaign where you're trying to phish, steal credentials, or gain certain information, then those things you can do at greater volume because you can automate some of those tasks. And we're seeing that surge in volume. So if you look at the numbers here, different from different sources, over 1,000% in malicious phishing email increase, nearly 1,000% in credential phishing, and nearly 2,000% in business email compromise. Now, business email compromise for me is one that I think we talk about ransomware a lot, but business email compromise actually is the #1 attack against most businesses. That's where somebody claims to be somebody else in an organization to get a funds transfer from the finance department urgently. They mimic being somebody else in the organization, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, AI can definitely help with that, because if you teach an AI model that on the basis of how your CEO normally talks, then the emails may well sound legitimate when they start coming into the CFO. So there's certain things there. Now, when I say it's the top attack, I take that from the IC3 report, the FBI's IC3 report. If you look at attacks in the US or recorded attacks, business email compromise is always at the top. To me, this is one that we should be able to fix quite easily. Put manual process into verification of payments or new payments. So walk down the corridor and actually see the person that's requesting it. Don't trust something that's turning up in email or in video or audio. So we certainly see more volume. Now, one of the things that the attack success rate has got much better, and the reason being is, of course, the attacks have got more sophisticated, or they're using our better language. So if you look at phishing emails that turn up in your inbox today, it's become a lot harder to actually work out whether they're real or whether they're fake. Certainly the grammar has got better, the actual content of the email has improved, the layout of the email may well have improved, and that's because the bad guys, the bad actors, are using AI-based tools to create this content, and that content is now looking much, much cleaner. So even when I get emails in my inbox now, I end up hovering over the address, or I end up hovering over the link to see where the links go, because sometimes the emails really do look incredibly, incredibly real. The other thing that, they're obfuscating code using AI tools to generate these attacks. One thing, though, I will say is we're not seeing an AI-generated attack at this moment. So we're not seeing an AI tool being used or an AI system being used to actually automate generation of attack against an adversary. I would term it that we're seeing AI assistance within cyber attacks. So being used for content, being used for tools to obfuscate code and create code, but not actually automate the attack itself. So at the moment, it's AI assisted. So, and of course, one thing we see a lot of, certainly if you're on social media, then you're likely to have seen a lot of deepfake content. I have a personal view on this one. If you're reading the news on social media, try not reading it on social media and try reading it on a news website where they have news verification systems, and they will actually validate and verify stories. Now, there's a reason why journalists, work for news outlets and don't work primarily for social media, and that's because for a news outlet, when they publish an article, it will be sourced by multiple places. It's been verified. Typically, now it doesn't mean it's absolute, or the news outlet isn't biased in some way, but you're more likely reading something that's not a deep fake or untrue, or not being led in a certain direction. So, for news, that's certainly a problem. Now, how does this affect business? How does deepfake get into business at some stage? Well, for example, in certain insurance claims, you might be required to, when you make a claim, actually attend a video call to start the claim with the insurer. Now, the insurer does that to make sure you're real, etc. Now, certainly some fraudulent cyber criminals are using deepfake technology to kick off that call. They claim they've got a connection problem and then go to audio only. And they're doing that because the processing of deepfake video is expensive and complicated at present. So it is being used. Companies do need to be aware that deepfake could become a commercial problem as well, or certainly is a commercial problem in certain instances. But where does this go beyond this? So what about nation-state type attacks? Now, if we look at cybercrime, typically what happens is you'll see nation-state attackers or those linked to nation-states using tools that are advanced and sophisticated in ways that normal cyber criminals don't yet have. But what happens over time, of course, these tools became available. They come down that chain and become more commercially available. I mean, Scott mentioned at the start, it's like buying software on the dark web. Yeah, absolutely, it certainly is. And you can get support contracts, etc. So sophisticated tools in use today by nation state style attackers will end up in the commercial arena at some stage. Now, the one thing, do we see attacks against critical infrastructure and such like? Yeah, there are continual attacks and probing against critical infrastructure, certainly in places like the US. And to give you an idea of that, we often hear about water utilities in the US. A number of those have been attacked over the last couple of years. To give you a picture now, in the UK, it's very different. Obviously, we only have maybe, 10 water companies or so around the UK, maybe 20 at max. In the US, there are 55,000 water utility companies, many of them non-profits and serving communities of 10,000 people or less. So, a lot of those very small companies don't have the cybersecurity infrastructure in place to actually be protected that well. So a sophisticated attack, attacking critical infrastructure in that way, is complex, but also way beyond the skill sets within those small companies. So it is unfortunately a growing problem, and of course, I would expect those to continue to morph and become more sophisticated over time. And we've seen lots and lots of companies deploying industrial IoT. So you think about something, let's take my water company example here. If you look at a valve that changes water pressure, water supply, that's may well be a valve that's been in place for 25, 30 years, and somebody's come along and stuck some connected automated mechanism on top of the valve, which is industrial IoT, and it may be using protocols on it that were not designed to be on the internet, but were designed to be connected in other ways. So suddenly, you've got old systems, old protocols being used in modern day communications, which of course causes problems. But even with modern industrial IoT, we should always be cautious around how we deploy these things and make sure. We heard from Scott mentioned vulnerabilities and patch management, etc. All those devices, whatever they are, whether they're IoT in the workplace, whether they're within a corporate network, or whether they're in an industrial side of a network, they need to be monitored and looked at. So one thing that we're going to hear from Darren, he's going to talk to us about MDR in just a moment, and he's going to talk to us about how we look for threats. Now, where does this go in the future? Where maybe AI does go? I'm kind of curious whether at some stage, whether a cyber criminal will build a system that responds specifically to a detection and response system. So they end up playing a game of chess. But I think we're a long way off. I will say I think we're a long way off of this. But we could see that at some point where an MDR system, EDR system is doing certain actions, and the actual attacker's system is looking to see what those actions are, and then trying to circumvent the actions or fool the actions as they happen. So at the moment, we're not anywhere near this. I have a theory on why we're not seeing AI-generated attacks at the moment, or AI being used in that way. And I think that's just because there's far too much opportunity, unfortunately, for cyber criminals to go take advantage of. I think once it becomes a lot tougher, they'll start using some of these tools. Improved victim selection, I think Scott mentioned that actually. If you start thinking about all the data breaches that each of us have been in, if we start aggregating that data into one source and then combing through that data and looking for certain patterns in that data, if we were cyber criminals, then actually identifying targets using automated processes is likely to be something cyber criminals are going to go down. Vulnerability hunting, again, think of the vast amounts of data. If you start using automated systems look and search out for vulnerabilities within organizations, that's one that could certainly happen. Now, ransomware was mentioned right at the start of this webinar. One thing that is interesting is AI poisoning. So if your company is using a data set currently to train, say, for example, a customer response system, so where you automate the front end of your customer response using an AI type bot system, you're training that system with data. Now, just to give you a thought here, at some stage at the moment, we see exfiltration of personal information by cyber criminals. But what if in the future, the cyber criminal doesn't actually exfiltrate data? What if they get into your system and start poisoning the data that you're using for those models? And then it's about you not understanding what data they inserted and them actually demanding an extortion fee, so a ransomware fee, to tell you how they poisoned it. So the sophistication of attacks could change certainly over time. So we need to keep a clear watch on some of this. So how do we fight? How do we fight back with this? How do we start using AI in cyber defense? Well, one thing is the market is expected to grow, as you can see. So over time, by 2030, it's expected to grow to $134 billion, which is not really that surprising. One thing I would caution is there's a lot of companies out there that claim to have AI-based cybersecurity solutions. Firstly, there is no silver bullet here. I mean, AI as a tool within a cybersecurity solution is a good thing. But companies that come out and turn and say, ours is all AI, I'm not so sure at this moment in time. It's probably a little bit smoke and mirrors. And we hear that certainly in threat, for example, in threat intelligence, these companies appear and turn and say, we've got great threat intelligence. Threat intelligence is about having data and telemetry. You've got to talk to somebody who has been in the market for a while to understand how to curate that data and how to make it a quality feed, which I know Darren is going to talk a little bit more about. So I'm just airing a little bit of caution here of don't believe everything that you read when somebody says our system is completely AI. If you look at how some of these, and I'm going to really skip through these really quickly because Darren's going to pick up and talk about these, real-time attack detection, certainly something that has been beneficial. Heuristics and behavioral analysis are using neural network type systems. So this has been in process for a fair amount of time by cybersecurity companies. Improved threat hunting. One thing with threat hunting is volume of data. So if you imagine huge log files, huge amounts of data from corporate networks, to actually identify anomalies in that type of traffic, you're going to need an AI-based system, an actionable intelligence. And with this one, I think I'm going to leave this one actually for Darren to talk a little bit more about how we deal with some of our threat intelligence at ESET. So with that, I'm going to pass this over to you, Darren.
Thanks, Tony. You mentioned just a couple of slides beforehand where you talked about the AI poisoning bit. There's an awful lot of poisoning happening on threat intelligence where cyber criminals, as you know, are using false ways to try and steer people in different directions to make them think that a particular technique or type of intelligence is coming their way when in fact they're actually going in a completely different direction, kind of shifting them somewhere else. And that's where they tend to think AI is going to be doing a very similar thing. And it's kind of a game of chess at the moment, isn't it? We're watching what they do when they move their next piece forward, and then they're watching what we do with AI, and then we're watching what they do. So it'll be interesting to see how things pan out, to be honest. But before we delve into the wonders of ESET and AI in the 21st century, let's kind of take a step back a few decades. So from the beginning of ESET, I've been with ESET for 10 years, and that's going back to 2015. ESET have been a force to be reckoned with since the 90s, and I've seen significant shifts happen in those 10 years, and the likes of Uri, our CTO, has seen this since pretty much the beginning of time. When we were a garage company, we kind of had to approach security intelligently rather than using brute force. And as we had a much lower number of employees in comparison to our competitors at the time, they had to build an environment that pushed us towards intelligent automation and machine learning right at the get-go. So it forced the business to develop intelligent approaches on how to collect data, how to pick what's important. So it goes back to kind of looking at subsets of information and picking out what's right, and then use it all together to look for that needle in a haystack, which is what SOC teams are doing now, with the help of AI, that is. So since '97, we've been incorporating the AI advancements into our technology, and some of the key highlights here was in 2010. We introduced our cloud reputation system, the ESET Live Grid. That was way ahead of its time in 2010. In fact, in 2015, when I started ESET, I was like, wow, this is an amazing bit of kit. And it delivered updates in a matter of minutes by leveraging online learning. So basically, it's taking all the telemetry from all the machines that are tapped in, that are doing all of the scanning, they're feeding that telemetry back out. So if it identifies something suspicious within the system, we can very quickly cross-reference that and then feed information back out to millions of other machines worldwide. So it's kind of beyond signature-based detection, even back in the day. But thanks to 2018 and the thanks to AI development, we launched an extremely powerful cloud sandbox called ESET LiveGuard, which uses multiples of different data sets to identify through static analysis, very comprehensive analysis of file types, and delivers decisions within minutes or even seconds. I've seen it do things in my time here. And then in 2020, we incorporated the transformer-based models into cloud and endpoint solutions. The architecture is what powers models like ChatGPT, as they are very adept at processing the types of natural language that we were using back then. In 2023, we added automated incident creator into ESET Inspect, which gave us the ability to be able to contextualize data and streamline incident consolidations into overviews to make it easier to threat hunt and faster to threat hunt. And then last year, we introduced an in-product AI assistant tool to help with the setup, to help with the intelligence, and just offer greater insights. And this was aptly named the AI Advisor, and I'll cover that shortly. So we've got a long history of using AI and machine learning in threat detection. And our use of AI is focused on four main areas. Now, the first one is enhancing the detection rates. That's been our bread and butter from the beginning, and it will carry on being so until the end of time. That's never going to go away. We need to be able to minimize false positives. This is an increase as a result of AI. We only have to look at the likes of VirusTotal. You can Google that, just Google false positives VirusTotal, and it'll give you a list of all of the false positives in URLs. So that's websites which are being tracked, and file types which have been opened or scanned. And with the interaction of AI with many of our competitors, you've seen a huge increase in the false positive rate. So we've kind of got to find a balance between sprinkling AI into our technology, but also being able to consider the false positive impacts as well. Third, we need to use it for aiding in threat hunting, contextualizing data faster through advancements in our AI means faster response times. And then fourth, we need to look at lowering the needed entry knowledge. There's a massive gap in the market. I go to events, I go to schools, colleges, I talk to a lot of people, and they want to get into this industry, but there's an awful lot of learning that needs to take place. it's not just the usual go and do your GCSEs and information technology and away you go kind of thing. I wish it was really that easy, but sadly it isn't. So there's an awful lot of experience that's now required to go alongside this learning capacity, which means that we've got this gap. So we need to ease the work and understanding of their security team on what happens in the system. So descriptions, the correlation of information into incidents to help them understand what that information looks like and be able to act a lot faster on it. Now, let's talk about false positives again for a moment. One of the biggest limitations, as I've mentioned, of AI-based detection is an increase in these false positives. Now, you've got a complexity of data that you have to look at, and AI systems often deal with vast and complex data sets, huge amounts. Even, we'll hear like 2 terabytes. You hear of 2 terabyte hard drives. If you look at the classification of data that's within it, you are looking at millions and millions and millions of data sets within that. And that's an awful lot of information that needs to be classified. So the more complex the data, the higher the chance of misinterpretation, which leads to false positives. Then you've got algorithm limitations. So AI algorithms are not perfect and they can sometimes misclassify data. So this is especially true in cases where the algorithm's not been trained on a diverse enough data set. And for those people who are familiar with ESET, if you've used our Nod 32 20 years ago, or you're using our product now, you'll know that we're known for our really low false positive rate. And it's something we pride ourselves in. So we're just very slowly introducing sprinkles of AI into technology, test it. Does it work? Yes. Test it again. And we go through an awful lot of that process before we let something out in the wild. And there are an annoyance for customers of false positives. It can have devastating consequences like disruption in production or damage to the production line. And it causes alert fatigue as well, which is something as somebody who kind of looks into information and data and classifications of data, is something I don't want to spend my lifetime doing. And whilst the minimal impact on false positives from AI, I've got to remember that we do implement quite a bit of this into our technology, but slowly. We need to be able to balance this with the overall real world protection. After all, we don't want the bad guys getting in on the systems just for the sake of us lowering the false positive rate. So we've got that balance. And we are pleased to be able to attain consistent levels year after year after year in order to thwart off those types of attacks. Now, the excellence in attack detection has been a hallmark of ours since the beginning of AI advancements to make attack detection even better. Now, when I do a demonstration of our technology in front of a new customer, for example, I'll show them this slide because it just gives a good example of the multi-layered security we have built into our endpoint product, but also where we kind of lay sprinkles of artificial intelligence or machine learning, as we've called it for a long time, into those components. And I won't go through each of them, but if anybody ever does want to talk to someone about it, I'm sure Scott or myself would be happy to do so. Now, the approach to cybersecurity, I look in kind of 3 different ways. We've got the LiveGrid system, which is our cloud reputation system. It utilizes data that ESET users have submitted worldwide and then sent it to the research lab. It provides suspicious samples from metadata in the wild and then allows the LiveGrid system enables us to react immediately. And we can use AI or machine learning, should I say, in those particular areas. We've been working with these algorithms to detect and block threats since the 90s. We added neural networks, all these fancy words. They get me sometimes. They were added into the detection engine back in 1998. And then the machine learning engine is then fine-tuned to cooperate with other protective technologies, like the sandbox, memory analysis. All these have to interlink together to identify suspicious process, suspicious behaviors. There's many. If you look at the MITRE attack framework, there are hundreds of different types of techniques that cyber criminals can use. We've got to determine whether or not they're being used in a safe or malicious way. And machine learning and AI can give us that that edge to be able to see that. And then we've got the live sense technology, as I mentioned before, which combines all the machine learning experience, cloud reputation system, and people. You know, we need to put human expertise into this. It's just not all about having data sets and LLMs and everything else to do the work for us. We are essentially the best decision makers, and we always will be the best decision makers. The ESET Protect platform is at the core of our technology system. Here you can see the entire ecosystem of what we have to offer, and those little white stars indicate that the solutions that use AI in the machine learning models that the algorithms that we've got in place. And on the right is our endpoint protection, and then we also have LiveGuard Advanced, and then ESET Inspect, which is our XDR platform. So we're making enhancements in other areas, and we'll carry on doing so. On the subject of detection response, this is where a lot of the focus is being with artificial intelligence. It's paved the way for extended detection response solutions to offer fast, proactive attack response mechanisms and a better insight into the nature of attacks and aid in better threat hunting. I jumped from my seat when I got an email one afternoon from the PMs to tell me actually they've incorporated AI into this to give us descriptions and contextualized data, because it strips so much time away from looking at information that's presented to you on screen. So we're using AI-based scanning to identify anomalies, anomalous behavior and breaches. And then the XDR piece, the extended detection response piece, enhances the threat hunting process by giving security teams the ability to search for threats without the need for all of this intricate query construction that they have to build from other systems and then tie them in through APIs and a whole host of other stuff. So we can aggregate and continuously monitor the activity to find an alert on sophisticated attacks. The ESET Inspect platform, the EDR platform, uses native AI to interpret security telemetry. So it aggregates individual alerts into incidents, and then from those incidents, you can work from timelines to be able to very quickly respond to what's in front of you. This really helps shorten the time to respond to attacks. And it gives you deep threat insight, but in a very easy to read format. You don't have to go and do a PhD to then come back and then be able to read what it means. I can give it to some of my salespeople, and some of them will pick it up and understand some of the language that's presented in front of them. Not all, but at least some of it. So it goes to show that we're making some headway in allowing everybody to be prepared. Now, the Inspect platform is from the Protect Enterprise bundle and upwards, as you can see here, I've highlighted in red. Now, we realize that XDR tools can be complex. They can generate lots of data. Not all companies have the necessary in-house specialists to manage this. Probably 1 in 10 conversations I have with businesses either have the budget to be able to spend on external SOC teams, or they can have 1 or 2 people working in-house themselves as, to some degree, security specialists that can manage this. But there's a budget problem. So we need to find different ways in which we can actually enhance this for businesses. So we offer several different types of security services, which is the managed detection and response, and this utilizes the AI-powered tools. Now, the MDR uses a combination of SIEM and SOAR technology. So there's a level of automation that allows us to be able to take all the event logs from a machine, throw them through a SIEM platform, and then through custom rules, threat hunting, playbooks, and a whole host of other stuff, we can very quickly determine within about 20 minutes after detection, investigation, and response to then be able to act upon what's being presented to us, and then all of that comes out through the SOAR platform. We give you weekly, monthly reports. It's a very quick response mechanism to incidents, risk mitigation used in the SOAR technology. So it ticks boxes for cyber security, cyber insurance. It ticks boxes for certain parameters that larger enterprise organizations are pushed cascading down to smaller businesses. So it's very much affordable. Then we've got the ultimate service. This gives us human expertise with sprinkles of artificial intelligence as well. So a combination of both. It's pretty much the old bells and whistles type detection and response service. And it combines 24/7 round-the-clock human expertise with our generative AI. So the artificial intelligence, the advisor, and it allows us for rapid incident response. Now, finally, the AI advisor, kind of the big generative AI that we've got built into our technology now. It's our latest evolution of artificial intelligence tech from ESET. It's your 24/7 cybersecurity expert. It can offer personal security insights, immediate assistance tailored to your specific cybersecurity needs. Now, the powerful kind of complexity of this allows us to seamlessly sync with the ESET solution suite that you choose, and then give you lightning fast and razor sharp insights as to what's going on. So it helps you better understand the threats, prioritizing threats faster with tailored analysis, and react to threats faster to be better prepared for the unknown. And you can ask it a whole host of different questions, and it will give you prompts as well to ask it based on what it's learned beforehand. So it's consistently learning whilst it's also giving you the power to act faster. It monitors the entire network. It's native to ESET's XDR platform, offering those instant results, that threat visibility. It accelerates decision-making. And it's very actionable in terms of its insights. It gives you something to look for. It gives you something tangible that you need to look at to be able to make decisions. And it provides guidance on configuring security settings. Misconfiguration is a huge attack surface problem for us. We come across this many different times. When you buy the tools, you use the tools. We always say, if you're unsure, call us. We'll teach you, we'll train you. That's what we're here for. Use them properly, and if used properly, they can be very powerful. So giving you that ability to be that guidance on some misconfigurations that have taken place can be very important. And also C-level executives, they can benefit from incident response descriptions which are translated into human language, which is what they need for clear and concise insights. I'm nearly done. The AI Advisor is built into the MDR Ultimate subscription. You'll get a lot of bang for your buck. You can see there the managed modern endpoint protection, all the way through threat defense, the live guard, also the vulnerability and patch, extended detection response, and then the service operated by us. And finally, AI Advisor in threat intelligence, and that leads me nicely to pass it back to Tony.
Thank you, Darren. However, any salespeople watching this, I apologize if Darren was inferring that you're not going to get some of this stuff.
No,
yeah,
not at all.
We should discuss that over a beer at some stage, Darren. I should point out I'm not in sales. Yeah, one of the other places that Darren didn't mention that we have AI is in some of our partnerships. So if you're running an Intel vPro chipset on a device, then the ESET product will automatically take advantage of some of the technology within the chipset. TDT technology, and what that does is it's using AI algorithms on the Intel side, so at the hardware level, to look at patterns across the processors to see whether, for example, ransomware is being pushed across the processors. So they can look for certain patterns in the processes that would flag something, an anomaly of traffic actually going across the processor, and they will then flag that to us within our software, and we can make a determination on what's actually happening on the other processes, in the software processes on the device, to determine whether it's ransomware. So my point here is it's not only about AI in software that you might load on the device. Yeah, there may well be AI being used at the hardware layer, so in firmware as well, by other vendors. And it's about those cooperations between vendors like us and Intel that actually bring that out. So a kind of a hidden feature there. So with that, I think Scott actually gave you a reasonable introduction to ESET, but just to very briefly say, we are a private company. We've been in business 35 years. In fact, not dissimilar to Grey Matter, was it? I think they've been in business about 40 years. We are the largest European cybersecurity vendor, and we are still owned by our original founders, which is highly unusual in the tech space after this many years in the market. One thing I always add into all of our presentations is that we publish our information on a website called We Live Security. So when we're talking about research, subscribe to welivesecurity.com and make sure you read the research articles we publish there. A lot of them are very useful to your business. And with that, Scott, I'm going to pass directly back to you, my friend.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Darren. A stunning presentation as always, and all the areas that ESET can help you protect your businesses with their multi-layered security approach. I think it's worth saying that if you have any intentions or concerns about protecting your business further with MDR services and all the things that ESET have talked about today, it's worth getting in touch. And also, we do realize that businesses are starting to use it more in their day-to-day for productivity, things like Microsoft Copilot. So if you're also looking to get your business prepared for using generative AI tools, then again, we have services that can engage with you and help you prepare your business, get your user security up to standard, and help you get to a safer place. All the contact details are available at the bottom there on the slide myself for email. You can also reach out to me on Teams. You just put my email into the search box and you can direct message me. If I'm green, give me a call or just throw me a message and I will get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you very much and have a really good day.
Thanks, Scott. It's been a pleasure.